Thank you all. Good afternoon. Συγγνώμη, αλλά θα τα κάνουμε στα αγγλικά. Το ξέρω ότι μας ακούει κόσμος, αλλά επειδή είναι οι Αμερικανοί επισκέπτες μας, θα πρέπει να κρατήσουμε στα αγγλικά την όλη συνεδρίαση. Λέγομαι Χρήστος Ζέρης, είμαι καθηγητής στο Μετσόβιο και σας απευθύνομαι σαν πρόεδρος του Ελληνικού Τμήματος του Συλλόγου των Πολιτικών Μηχανικών της Αμερικής, που είναι ένα από τα τμήματα που είναι παγκοσμίως πολλές χώρες, υπάρχουν πάρα πολλά τμήματα εκτός Αμερικής, τα οποία μέλη του Συλλόγου είναι αυτόματα γραμμένοι και συμμετέχουν στην ενημέρωση και στις εκδηλώσεις. Σαν μέρος αυτής της διαδικασίας, φέτος τυχαίνει να γίνει η επίσκεψη του Προεδρείου του Συλλόγου Πολιτικών Μηχανικών μαζί με την ετήσια συνδιάσκεψη των Προέδρων των Συλλόγων Εξωτερικού, εκτός Αμερικής, Καναδά και Μεξικού, που γίνεται ετησίως και γίνεται εδώ στην Αθήνα. Οπότε διοργανώσαμε αυτή την εσπερίδα, αυτό το συμπόσιο στα πλαίσια της εκδήλωσης. Θα μιλήσει και η Πρόεδρος του Συλλόγου και ο Executive CEO, ο κ. Σμιθ, για τα θέματα, του ζητήσαμε να κάνουν μια παρουσίαση για τα θέματα της αειφορίας, τις υποδομές και επίσης και για την καινούρια, την έξυπνη πόλη του μέλλοντος, που μας την παρουσίασε το πρωί η Πρόεδρος και ευχαρίστως θα μας ξαναπεί κάποια πράγματα τώρα το απόγευμα που είμαστε πιο πολλοί. Άρα, σας καλωσορίζω όλους εντός και εκτός της αιθούσης. Ευχαριστούμε που ήρθατε, παρόλο που ο καιρός δεν βοηθάει, για ένα ενδιαφέρον συμπόσιο, πιστεύω. Έχουμε και πολλούς Έλληνες προσκεκλημένους που θα μας δώσουν τα θέματα που απασχολούν εδώ τον ελληνικό τεχνικό κόσμο, στην Αειφορία και στις υποδομές. Η μόνη αλλαγή που θα έχουμε, δυστυχώς λόγω της Διεθνούς Έκθεσης Θεσσαλονίκης, το Υπουργείο δεν μπόρεσε να προγραμματίσει τελικά να μας στείλει κάποιον που θέλαμε να μας μιλήσει, κυρίως για το αρχικό, το καθορισμό του προβλήματος, αν θέλετε, δηλαδή πόσο μεγάλο είναι το πρόβλημα των υποδομών και τα ιστορικά κάποια στοιχεία, παλαιότητας κλπ. Αλλά θα το καλύψουμε μέσα από τις ομιλίες των άλλων ομιλητών. Θα μιλήσει ο πρόεδρος του ΤΕ, ο οποίος τώρα τον περιμένουμε να μας κάνει και τον πρώτο χαιρετισμό, γιατί ασχολείται το ΤΕ, από το Υπουργείο έχει το πρόγραμμα της έξυπνες γέφυρες που θα μας το παρουσιάσει και πόσο έχει προχωρήσει αυτό. Και επίσης και άλλοι ομιλητές. Άρα, περιμένουμε τον κύριο Στασινό και να ενημερώσω και όλα του στα πλαίσια αυτής της εκδήλωσης στην Αθήνα. Αύριο, εδώ στο ΤΕ, θα υπογραφούν και θα ανανεωθούν μάλλον μνημόνια συνεργασίας. Υπήρχε ένα μνημόνιο συνεργασίας από παλιά μεταξύ του Συλλόγου Πολιτικών Μηχανικών και του Τεχνικού Επιμελητηρίου, το οποίο θα επαναοριστικοποιηθεί αύριο, εδώ, στο ΤΕ, και επίσης και ο κ. Μπαρδάκης, ο πρόεδρος του Συλλόγου Πολιτικών Μηχανικών Ελλάδος, θα υπογράψει ένα αντίστοιχο με την πρόεδρο του Αμερικανικού Συλλόγου. Επίσης, δίπλα μου είναι και ο Ανδρέας, που είναι ο πρόεδρος του Ευρωπαϊκού Συμβουλίου Πολιτικών Μηχανικών, European Civil Engineers Council, ο οποίος επίσης και αυτοί είναι εδώ, ήρθε από το Λονδίνο, που είχαν δικές τους συναντήσεις εκεί και θα υπογράψουν και αυτοί εδώ και αυτό το board. You will sign also a memorandum with the cooperation with the ASCE tomorrow, with the President. Άρα θα υπογράψουν και αυτοί εδώ. Άρα η Αθήνα είναι το σημείο ουσιαστικά που συναντιόμαστε όλοι, όχι μόνο για τη συμπόσιο αυτό, αλλά και για πολλές περισσότερες συνεργασίες στο μέλλον. Για το καλό φυσικά του ελληνικού τεχνικού κόσμου που συμμετέχει σε αυτές τις ενημερώσεις. Άρα περιμένουμε και... Okay. Άρα, μέχρι να έρθει, παρακαλώ, κύριος Μπαρδάκης.
Dear Presidents, dear professors, dear colleagues and friends, on behalf of the Civil Engineers Association of Greece, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everyone attending this important workshop. Especially, we are pleased to welcome the famous leaders in engineering who accept our invitation and are here presenting fruitful presentations and subjects. Today, we face global infrastructure challenges, the likes of which have never been seen before. If not addressed, the quality of life for next generations will be affected. The Greek Association, in cooperation with organization Dianeosis, published a report concerning the significance of bridges, the safety of the traveling public, and the guidelines for the reduction of structural deficient bridges. Bridges that require significant maintenance, rehabilitation, or replacement. The number of structural deficient bridges is increasing, and the average age of Greek bridges keeps going up. Many of the bridges are approaching the end of their design life. Technical Chamber has launched large projects as the Smart Bridges project to monitor the relevant infrastructure network across Greece. Also, another large project of TCG targets to resume pre-seismic inspection for public buildings, with emphasis placed on some 30,000 structures deemed to be of critical importance, such as schools, hospitals, and other places of large gatherings. Each infrastructure or utility project faces different issues based on type, size, geographic region, and more. Planning and preparedness by addressing risks through the lens of sustainability and resiliency is another key ingredient in the recipe for success. The mentioned large projects help bring visibility to the nation's infrastructure crisis. Engineers must, above all else, protect and advance the health, safety, and welfare of the public. I would like to express our warm greetings and heartfelt wishes for the success of this meeting. As hosts, we are always at your disposal for any help. Thank you very much.
Now the President of the European Civil Engineers Council.
Dear President, dear colleagues, I'm very honored to be invited to this very interesting event today and would like to say a few words to you. Sustainable infrastructure, two words that have gained immense importance in the present. ASCE already pointed out the need of maintenance and sustainability of its infrastructure in the Malta Manifest of 2022. For years, new infrastructure was built in Europe but all over the world. But sustainability was rarely considered and of interest. Existing infrastructure has been grossly neglected around the world. All of Europe is facing billions of investments to rehabilitate and maintain the safety of infrastructure, and because policymakers have failed to look at this. In the course of the sustainability debate, it is of course also necessary to think in a new and more global way, away from individual measures and towards a holistic solution. When we talk about infrastructure, most people think of transport infrastructure, roads, bridges, railways, airports, ports. But water supply, sewage, waste disposal, energy supply and distribution are also part of infrastructure. Especially in the area of energy supply and distribution, the massive investments in renewable energy, like wind and photovoltaics, bring us to our limits as the grids are rarely designed for them and storage problems arise. Here it's worth taking a holistic approach to all those projects and plans, and not only a populistic approach. But of course, a holistic approach is also necessary in the transport infrastructure. Most individual transport have priority as it has up to now. Or would it not be better to take a different approach? Aren't changes in our mobility behavior also necessary to achieve the sustainability goals? All these examples call for civil engineers who approach these challenges with comprehensive knowledge and a holistic approach, and I am proud to be a representative of this profession, even if sometimes the achievements are underestimated in the society. I wish you much success for the upcoming event and look forward to interesting lectures and also discussions. Thank you once more for the invitation.
Shall we start? No, so, please. Yeah. Mr. Tom Smith.
My name is Tom Smith, and it's a great pleasure to be with you here in Athens. This is my second time in Athens. The first time I was here on holiday with my wife over 25 years ago, and it's a wonderful country, and I have many great friends. In fact, my closest childhood friends were from Greece. They moved to the United States. This is back in the 1960s. It's an honor to be here with you, with the different presidents that we have here, our President Lehman, Christos, as well as Georgios, who's I know will be here, Andreas, Vasilis, and of course, Sissy Nicolau is the president of our ASCE Geo Institute, and she's originally from Athens as well. So it's a great honor to be here with her and all of you. I joined ASCE back in 1985. I was born in 1964, and I know that here in our audience is Gerasimos Kritikos, who joined ASCE back in 1962. So he's been a member of ASCE for a good long time, over 60 years, and thank you. He's a life member of ASCE. We've got a number of life members here in the audience. We've got members here, of course, on our Region 10 board from all over the world. And it's, again, it's a great honor to be with you here in Athens. I wanted to talk a little bit about how ASCE is working for all of you and really working to solve some of the issues that were addressed earlier by our presidential speakers here this morning. The world faces quite a few different challenges. We just came as a delegation with our Region 10 board from London. We met with the Institution of Civil Engineers there. And we had, when I turned on the British Broadcasting Network, the BBC, just the day before yesterday as I was leaving London, the lead stories were about the critical water issues that they're having, trying to clean up the Thames. And they talked about combined sewer overflow challenges that they're having in London. They talked about RAC, which is that aerated concrete. Christos knows all about that, has been following that. Some of the challenges they're having with concrete that had a design life of 30 or 40 years. It met its design life, but and now they're starting to see some failures and challenges. But those were the key issues in the news in London when we left just 2 days ago. You're starting to see those to be the key issues in many countries, as you just heard. Greece, the United States, United Kingdom countries, as well as all over the world. We heard about other countries in Europe as well. We're finding that we've invested in infrastructure and we've failed to maintain it oftentimes, and we have a lot of work to do about protecting our public health, safety, and welfare. As an organization, this is what ASCE is here for. We're here to advance the public health, safety, and welfare, and we do that by promoting the profession, and we do that by promoting the individual members that we have all over the world. you all in this room. Our goal, my goal as executive director of ASCE is to serve you, to help you be better civil engineers so that we can better serve this profession, so we can better serve this world. We know that we are facing challenges in common in all of these different countries, and we cannot solve them by working in independent towns, cities, states, or even countries. We only are going to be able to solve them by working together. That's what brings people here from all over the world so that we can share knowledge, share expertise. That's why we have ASCE. So I'll talk a little bit, oops, excuse me. There we go. Really, most of what we're trying to do at ASCE is develop leadership and develop civil engineering leaders. We know that you look at the Sustainable Development Goals. When we were at the Institution of Civil Engineers earlier this week, their president was, one of his primary initiatives is look at the Sustainable Development Goals. How do we solve these problems? All of those goals require civil engineering, not just the ones about infrastructure and smart cities and clean water and clean air, but also the goals that talk about equity and poverty. All of that requires civil engineering. And in order to be effective, we need to foster leaders, and we need civil engineers in leadership roles. So that's what we're trying to work on within ASCE, is to build civil engineering leaders. And you can see this is a picture of the ASCE Board of Direction on the top. That was just taken in the spring. You can see Maria in the center there with the yellow jacket. Right now, I will tell you that we are also focusing on making sure that our profession reflects the community at large. Next year, Maria will become past president. Marcia, standing next to her, will become president. You can see April Landers is in that picture as well. She's from New Zealand, a director on ASCE's board who represents Region 10. But next year, 11 of the 18 directors on ASCE's board will be women. That's a heck of an accomplishment. It's also a very small step of many more steps that are needed to show a profession that reflects the community that we serve. Right now, it doesn't reflect that. But when you see leaders of ASCE that are diverse and diverse in every different way, that is progress. That's going to attract more diversity into our profession. So we're proud of that. And you can see, you know, the picture at the bottom, there's one of our past presidents with President Obama. You know, we've had many of our presidents and directors on our board actively involved in advocating on Capitol Hill for investment in infrastructure. Okay, so I keep pushing the wrong one, sorry. Okay, so this all starts, you heard earlier about, I think April this morning talked a little bit about the code of ethics. The foundation of everything we do, and we were talking earlier this morning with, I think that was President Andreas Brandner. We were talking about corruption in different countries. And it's not just, you know, we talked about corruptions in certain places where I can name countries where they've had challenges with specific instances in South America or Africa. But you can also find corruption in plenty of countries, including the United States. And we have a committee on ethics within ASCE that enforces our code of ethics. So we have high standards for ethical responsibility. We have a code of ethics that goes back to 1914 that we just recently renewed with a comprehensive revisions to our code of ethics. And you'll see the stakeholders, our society and the environment. Increasingly, we're talking about the importance of the environment and harmonizing with nature with our code of ethics, as well as the profession, our clients and employers and peers. So our code of ethics is kind of the foundation at the heart of everything we do. We need to be trusted as civil engineers, and we need to live and abide by a code of ethics. Strategic plan. We just adopted a new strategic plan at ASCE. You'll see the vision statement. Engineered and natural systems work in harmony for the benefit of humanity. You're hearing this discussed a lot more, I think, globally as well now, where it's a recognition that concrete and steel has to harmonize with nature. We've got to be able to work together with nature and figure out how to make sure that that environment is a stakeholder and that we are serving the not only current generations, but future generations. And if we're going to look for future generations, that's hundreds of years ahead of us, beyond our children, our grandchildren, and their children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We need to make sure that we're considering the environment and harmonizing with nature. So we have a new vision, a new mission that focuses on the profession for sustainably advancing and protecting the health, safety, and welfare, and a commitment to our members. Everything is about the members, making sure that we're developing civil engineers as global leaders. We also have strategic shifts where we focus on society and the profession and our membership, innovating, advocating, inspiring, stimulating, magnifying, and delivering. And we've got dozens of other sort of objectives and strategies to accomplish this. We have a lot of committees that are working on this right now. Heavy focus on our digital strategy, heavy focus on standards and grants, and making sure we have one ASCE. One of the benefits of ASCE is global representation and also a broad spectrum of individual disciplines within civil engineering. We have a global footprint. We're in 177 countries. ASCE is very actively involved with, we have over 400 student chapters, but 100 of those, more than 100 of those are outside of the United States. That's been significantly growing. April talked this morning about how we have 36 different sections and groups. Lots of people working very hard to make that happen. Here in the room, you know, April Lander is our director from Region 10. She is from New Zealand. Before her was Ilyas Sayeh. He's a director from Abu Dhabi, originally from Lebanon. So he's got connections all over the world. Before him was Brett Phillips, director from Australia. You know, we've got other region governors here in the room. Sri Lanka. We've got a former director here, Constantine from Greece. We've got Chow from Hong Kong. Who else? Where am I missing? Olga, right? Where's Olga? There's Olga from Colombia in South America. So we've got, and then the staff support for our Region 10 activities. Did I miss anybody? I got Kamal from, Kamal from Sri Lanka. Yes, yes. And then, thank you. And then the staff support is Nevis McClarty. Many of you may have met her. She's originally from Croatia and speaks multiple languages herself. It's been a pleasure to travel with her. Pardon? Please, yes, please. Let's have our Region 10 board, if you wouldn't mind standing up, our Region 10 Board of Governors to be recognized. So you see this, and current and past. Yes, very good. So you can see we've come, so broad representation all over the world with our global footprint. As part of our global footprint, I'll mention engineering federations. One of the, Uday Singh was with us when we were in London 2 days ago. He's the Secretary General of the Asian Civil Engineering Coordinating Council. So ASCE has a leadership role there. So we're very active in helping to lead the Asian Civil Engineering Coordinating Council with Uday Singh's leadership. He's an active ASCE member, originally from India, but he lives in California, worked for CH2M, which is now part of Jacobs, and so been an active member of our Environmental Water Resources Institute. Also, the Pan American Federation of Engineers. April mentioned some of these this morning. Ari Herrera, one of our members who heads up that federation of the country. These are the different engineering societies, not just civil, but all types of engineering throughout Central, South, and North America. Ari Herrera, ASCE member who's leading that. And then Guna, we were just talking with Guna just about an hour ago. He's one of our past presidents of ASCE. He's an executive vice president over at AECOM. Active ASCE member, and he heads the World Federation of Engineering Organizations UN Relations Council. So he's very actively involved in a leadership role as well. We want to make sure that everybody gets involved on a world platform as civil engineering leaders. That's our goal as an organization. We have a geographic structure. So we just talked a little bit about Region 10 that has a director on our board, and then the United States is divided up into regions as well. And they have directors on our board. So we have 10 regions in total. Region 10 is the one that includes all countries outside of North America, outside of the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our technical region. So in addition to our geographic region that goes all across the world, one of the strengths, I think, of civil engineering and ASCE is that we also have all of these different technical disciplines. So you see architectural engineering, structural engineering, geotechnical engineering. So if you look at the geotechnical engineering, the shield, the bottom left, second from the bottom left, that's GI. I mentioned Sissy. She's the president of that GEO Institute. That's a large institute in and of itself. Sissy is, yes, from here in Athens. Thank you. So those institutes each have their own boards, and many of them have their own technical journals. In fact, Sissy, if I'm not mistaken, the GEO Institute has one of the most popular high impact factor journals that we have, a geotechnical journal. So it's highly sought after, highly utilized. In fact, Gerasimos probably is familiar with it, I suspect, because I know one of your professors you mentioned earlier was Ralph Peck. Ralph Peck is somebody who's known globally throughout the geotech community. I mean, Cynthia knows him and knows the name certainly very, very well. But you know, that's just one institute. Each of those institutes, for instance, the Structural Engineering Institute has over 30,000 members, and they develop their own standards. They have their own conferences, but they also collaborate together because we need to connect a systems-wide approach. As you heard, when you have issues with our infrastructure, it involves an entire system, and our institutes allow you to connect that system. Everything having to do with infrastructure, we've got a hand in it as civil engineers. And then we also have the Committee on Technical Advancement. So that includes things like cold regions, forensics. So those are Committee on Sustainability that April Landers presented on this morning. So the Committee on, and that's the Technical Advancement Committee that I referenced earlier, aerospace, cold regions, computing, energy, forensics, etc. So those are all very important that kind of cut across all of the different technical disciplines that we customarily think of when we look at engineering education. Advocacy. Maria can talk a lot about this. She could go for a few hours telling you about advocacy. She's very passionate. You can see this is the picture of Maria at the top left shaking hands with Pete Buttigieg. He's the Secretary of the United States Department of Transportation. He ran for president earlier. As we know, President Biden won that election, and we actually hosted some debates on infrastructure where Pete Buttigieg was present for that. And Maria, I know, was there. Maria was appointed by President Biden to the National Infrastructure Advisory Council, so that's a leadership role for civil engineers. That's an example of what we're trying to accomplish. We want in the Greek government, we want to make sure that there are ASCE members, civil engineers who are providing counsel and advice on infrastructure. That's what we're doing now in the United States. We want to do that in every country. We also, in addition to Maria, she's the vice chair of that council, but one of our other past presidents, Norma Jean Mattei, she is also on that National Infrastructure Advisory Council, providing advice to President Biden and his administration on infrastructure. And they've got a number of different plans and recommendations and strategies to improve our infrastructure in the United States. We also do a report card on America's infrastructure. We look at all 17 categories. We've kind of defined what infrastructure is. Through that report card, everybody recognizes, oh, infrastructure includes roads, bridges, dams, levees. It includes broadband. It includes, and that's a category that we're going to see added. We actually did an issue paper on it last time as well. So we're heavily focused on reaching out to the public on infrastructure and making a difference. We have actually really did make a difference because we've had new investment in infrastructure in the United States like we've never had before. We've done a report card for over 20 years, since 1998. We issue it every 4 years. We also do an economic study called Failure to Act. So what happens if we don't invest in infrastructure? Catastrophic problems, as well as cost. There's a hidden tax that we pay if we don't invest in infrastructure. So we spend a lot of time talking about that and educating the public, educating legislators about the importance of investing in infrastructure. Okay, so we know that all of this starts with students. We have to reach out to our students, and that's why I mentioned we have 400 student chapters, and we divide those into different regions, and we hold competitions and conferences, leadership conferences. So well over 6,000 students participate in these conferences each year. We hold 20 of them in the United States, but we also do one in India. Chow's been involved with the conference that we do in the Greater China section as well. He can tell you that includes China, Macau, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. So that's been growing, and they're holding competitions and having leadership training at each of these conferences. So that's also very important because we know that those are the future leaders, the future civil engineers. All membership in ASCE as a student is free. And then once you graduate as a student, your first year in ASCE, again, there's no dues for that. We think it's important to get introduced to ASCE and make connections throughout the globe. All right, major activities, Future World Vision. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. We have some VR goggles. We've got to start getting those used on our next break. We're going to see if people can start putting those on, and it will immerse you into a future city. What we did is some detailed studies to try and figure out what are the key trends that are facing our planet and our profession, and how do we address those, and what do we see future cities looking like. So we then figured out what a scenario planning, a 2070 city looks like. We call it a mega city. Then we designed and we can insert you into a year 2070 city by putting on the VR goggles, and you can feel what it's like. We're also releasing another IMAX film, and this is going to be a way that we can help to educate the public about civil engineering by showing them what future cities look like. And we've been filming all over the world, Singapore, Amsterdam, Los Angeles, to show some futuristic cities that are already in existence. And so this is an opportunity to see civil engineering on a big IMAX screen in theaters all over the world. We did that with Dream Big. There's another film that we released several years back. Infrastructure, we're focusing again on the Infrastructure Investment Act, our state report cards. Many different states, our countries are issuing report cards now. Australia is working on one. South Africa has one. Japan has one. We've assisted many of these countries in developing report cards. We're helping India right now. And maybe don't start off with 17 categories, but you may start off with 1, 2, 3, or 4 categories. That's what India is looking to do. Certainly Greece could do that too, to have a report card so you could show your government, this is the state of our infrastructure. We need to invest more in our infrastructure, and here's why. Who is better to speak about that than civil engineers? They're the experts. They're the ones who should be talking about infrastructure. We feel like we have an obligation to do that. And then we've got our convention coming up in Chicago. That's where we're going to release our IMAX film, Cities of the Future. That's going to be a preview for everybody that attends, so that'll be a lot of fun. Other things we're doing, we're having a heavy focus on standards. That's where we have a very regimented process to figure out, what are the performance-based standards for our profession? I think the Geo Institute is working on one because my good friend Billy Camp is, I know, involved in that. On foundations, I believe. Is that on foundations? On risk-based design with foundations. So the Geo Institute's working on one. We've got over 70 different standards, so we've really been increasing pretty significantly our number of standards. We're working on one on sustainable infrastructure. That's been a number of years in the making. These are complicated projects to try and bring all these different experts together and bring them to a consensus on a standard. But that's a big focus of ASCE because our standards can be incorporated into building codes, and that impacts public health, safety, and welfare. That's where civil engineers just actually make the laws themselves instead of advocating to others to make law. In addition to that, we have an upcoming conference called Inspire. That's going to be in November. We have a number of different sustainability publications. I'll mention quickly Envision. April talked a little bit about that. Back in 2010, we teamed up with 2 other organizations, Public Works and engineering companies, to develop a rating tool. It's called Envision, to evaluate projects. And so there's been hundreds of projects have been evaluated using this rating tool. That is called the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure, and that tool is you can download for free online today and start using it on projects. And then we're focusing very heavily on workforce development. We're finding a shortage of engineers, certainly in the United States. We keep hearing that, and we're hearing it in other countries too. In fact, Chow was just telling me today in Hong Kong, they've seen their graduate civil engineer, their salaries have doubled in the past 3 to 5 years, Chow was mentioning to me, because there's a demand for civil engineering, and that's very positive in some ways. It's also alarming in other ways, because it's a concern. We've got to make sure we attract more into this profession, and we want to make sure that they're paid what they deserve, which is to be the highest paid of all professions out there. because they have such an impact on so many people's lives. Okay, so membership, I always talk about membership. We're trying to focus at every opportunity on providing value to members. So we have different publications we provide. Sissy can tell you all about Geostrata. She writes a president's column. That's a magazine that's produced just for members of the Geo Institute. Of course, we have a civil engineering magazine. We have a structures magazine. We have newsletters for all these different technical disciplines. We also have policy newsletters called This Week in Washington that talks about things that are going on in D.C. We have 10 free PDHs so that all members can get their education every year for free as part of their membership. We are adding this year, you'll find out about this in your most upcoming communications, we're adding 5 downloads of articles for all members as well. Publications is one of the ways that everybody knows ASCE globally. I think Brett Phillips can tell you about how he got involved in ASCE because he learned about our journals and he thought they were such high quality, and we reject over 70% of the articles that are even submitted, and over half of those are from outside the United States, but 70% of those are rejected because it's a very high bar to be published there. So when you get published in the journal, that means something. And so people know that's part of our brand. So there'll be 5 article downloads that'll be part of your membership starting January the 1st. We have ways to connect our members called Collaborate, so we can connect them virtually. That's also very important. We have a lot of things to help a career connections website so that you can find jobs globally. And we do a salary report. So there's a variety of different things that we're working on to serve you better. And obviously, we'd love to continue to hear from you on things that we can do better. Okay, so next, Maria, do you want to tee up a little bit of discussion on future world vision and maybe show this video?
Yeah, you do that now. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for our host. I had an opportunity to talk to folks this morning. I have to say that between the comments that Christos and Vasilis and Andreas had, there's violent agreement from all of us about what the challenges are moving forward. And what we're seeing as a profession is that we are at a crossroads for what will happen. And I said this morning, civil engineers are the hypothalamus of the brain. Breathe, breathe, the heart pump, pump. Nobody knows what we do. The public doesn't know what we do until something goes drastically wrong. And then they start paying attention to what we do. And so it's very important that we teach school-age children so that they get interested in math and science and they get involved and have the tools to be able to then, through high school, and have a good profession. But we also have to stop selling it as a hard hat and a vest and boots, because the kids that are 15 and 25, you can't get them out of their phone. Okay? They're all about high tech. And so what we're seeing around the world is the only country we found thus far in all the conversations we've had that creates more engineers than they need in their pipeline is Brazil. We heard when we were in Bangladesh, we've heard from Sri Lanka, we've heard from China. We can all use more engineers. And so it's very important that we have a tool to get people to understand what it is that we do, that it is exciting. It's not just about mud on your boots. And that it's also important to get practitioners today to understand what their role is in changing the way we do things and changing the planet. We are very excited that we put together a tool. Basically, we originally had a 25-year kind of long view, a long-range plan for ASCE. This was going to be 50 years. And so we were asked to reprise this. This is a video on our Future World Vision project that Tom talked about. If you're an ASCE member, you can download this tool right now. And as a member, if you have a challenge on a project, you have the ability to drill in, see what it is, and thousands of engineers worked on this. This is not science fiction. This is the way it is. And these things you're seeing are already built somewhere in the world. And so we see them as scaling up over the next 50 years. But if you have a question on how I do something or how would I approach something for a 50 or 100-year design life, this will help you think, because the pace of change is getting faster and faster, and it's harder to be able to be adaptable to what we really need to do. So I'm introducing this video. You can download this package, but the VR is for people that are totally non-technical and to get them interested, whereas the actual download that you use, you can actually get into, make comments. It will learn from that. You will get connected with others with the same concern. So it's a worldwide whiteboard of professionals getting together. So Tom, you want to start the video?
If you don't make a plan or make a goal and have a vision, then you just react your way into the future. And that's not what we want to do as civil engineers. We want to lead into the future.
How we do our jobs as civil engineers, maybe as systems engineers, will be different in the future.
What are the different cities we see evolving, and how can we really get an understanding of those cities? How can we immerse ourselves in those cities today?
What are the different social infrastructures, physical infrastructures that can be created in which we can all come together and thrive?
What's really important about looking at this through a world-building lens is that it is designed to look forward and then thread back into the present. The further out you look, the more it changes our view of the present.
We're literally forced to not only reimagine our communities, but to rediscover our neighbors, to rediscover many of the things that are right in front of us.
We're spatializing narrative and allowing the user to tell their own story as they navigate the experience of this virtual cityscape.
What can a megacity grow toward so that it's serving a better purpose? You start looking at individual buildings then, because you can typically shape a building. And can you connect several buildings together?
The buildings might form coalitions and interact with the utility, and the utility will interact with the providers of energy all around. That becomes a transactive energy system, and the buildings can play an active role.
I can design a microgrid that serves that district. Or if we need the microgrid to serve an adjacent district, we layer those together.
We need a water supply system that can meet 50 million people's needs.
Every building in the future should be capturing sunlight and rainwater, and every building should be recycling its own waste.
Ideally, the life cycle of infrastructure is one that is continuous, or perhaps reused in the future without going back and re-emitting all that carbon to do the same thing over again. That's the way we've built over the last century, and we simply cannot do it anymore.
Buildings are not unlike a human body. They have bones and skin. They consume energy and regulate temperature and generate waste. What if architects use genetic tools from synthetic biology to encode the architecture of buildings right into the DNA of organisms?
The facades now become active components. And one active thing that facades can do, they can breathe or they can sweat.
You can infuse biological functionalities into structural building materials.
Almost 100% of all the controls in buildings are going to have some element of AI in them and machine learning. As you walk into the building in the morning, the building will recognize you by your electronic signature. You would have created a profile about your temperature, your ventilation preference, and then some of this microenvironment might follow you.
What would social cohesion look like in the city of 2070? It's reasonable to expect that it would actually be vertical.
So, going vertically also brings its own challenges in terms of safety and security.
You might have 175 drones coming in at 11:45 a.m. delivering lunch. Where do they land? How much space are between them? What are the specifications?
It just has to be designed in a way that people can interact, and making sure that you're encouraging paths of travel that are spontaneous.
We're at just the right point in time to get together and build basically the aerial equivalent of what we did in this country with the national interstate highway system, and no longer be restricted to two dimensions. So how do you get the public involved in civil engineering, in the process of civil engineering?
One of the best ways that we can make sure that all voices are heard and included is to start with the people who are doing the planning and developing and see what their teams look like.
How can you ensure social equity and social justice and get input from the community for the projects that we're working on?
We are very conscious about the demographic, the diversity of the community and the society, and make sure that we don't leave anybody behind.
Creating these multi-use spaces is one way of doing that, of bringing people together. And once they're in the same shared space, there is more opportunity for connection, there's more opportunity for shared experience, there's more opportunity for civil dialogue.
The best solutions on earth, they come with diversity of thought. What I love most about the Future World Vision Project is that we can think about it together. We can have this dialogue.
Users will encounter one another and have conversations across disciplines that will begin to feed back and bring new information into the system.
We're trying to build a world and trying to build a machine that is creating absolute engagement of the user and of the engineer in their own future.
The future world vision is really at the core of what we're trying to do at ASCE in transforming the idea of what a civil engineer can be. And that's how we think that we can advance the profession of civil engineering and attract the best and brightest.
Oh my goodness. This fourth industrial revolution, married to the fundamentals of concrete, glass, and steel, is this incredible toolbox for society. It's really on us as civil engineers to pull that all together.
So again, if you want to experience it, it'll be here this afternoon. Put the goggles on, take it for a test drive. What this is all pointing to for us as a profession is that we have to stop talking to ourselves. We're very good in having technical conversations with other professionals in our field, but we're not telling the general public what it is that we do. We're not telling the elected public. As we go forward, sustainability and resiliency means we have to change the mindset from upfront costs to life cycle costs, and from prescriptive specifications to basically performance specifications. And if you look at the mega projects around the world, that has happened. Because if you have a prescriptive specification where you say you're going to use this kind of material and you're going to have this kind of weld or this kind of connection, where are you getting innovation? And I can tell you my personal experience when I was project executive of the Mario Cuomo Bridge, which is about 22 kilometers north of New York City, the major truck route. It's a $4 billion project. And we had about 2,000 pages of specifications about things that you had to meet on the state and federal level. It's 3 miles long, so about 5 kilometers, 6 kilometers. There was 12 plan sheets. This is where the bridge starts. This is where the bridge ends. This is the area that we did the environmental analysis on. This is where the channel and the navigational, the clearances you have to have. Have a nice day. Figure it out. And so, when you do that, you can unleash innovation. And there was an incredible amount of innovation that came to that. So it's really important to get people to think differently than, this is where I look. I don't look here. We're not going to save money, do things faster, and innovate if we do that. So that's at a high level. Now, taking that tool, we also decided that it's not just about having this virtual reality and this place for us to convene for the future, but it's also important to teach kids about how exciting this is. And so when we did Dream Big, our DVD, we put 100,000 copies into schools, every middle and high school in the United States and thousands around the world, about how this applies to them so they can see themselves. Because most people think, oh, engineering, math, science, hard, nerd. We need to make it sexy. It's the bottom line. And so part of what we're doing is called Cities of the Future. And this will show you, when you saw the Future World Vision video, that it's based on things that are actually out there today that we think will scale up. So Tom, if you could, this is our trailer. We are opening this at our convention on a green carpet because it's going to be a big movie, but we're sustainable, so it's a green carpet, not a red carpet. And then it will be fully launched around the world for museums and for IMAX in February of next year. So I hope you enjoyed that, so you have a better idea of what our vision for the future is. My challenge to all of you, first of all, is to talk this up and step up your outreach with younger kids that are looking at university and what they should be doing. But my further challenge is that every single person in ASCE brought one younger member. We say 35 and under is a younger member, although we have some older younger members in the audience. If you brought one member, that makes a huge impact, because our ability to do what we can is a function of the size of our membership and the size of what we have to invest. What I'd like to wrap up with before we do some questions is that I think the next few years, probably less than 5 years, is going to set the glide path for our profession for the next 30 to 50 years. We are at a crossroads, and it's critically important that we engage and that we start talking to others and not to ourselves about all the great things that we're doing. So if it's not us, then who? And if it's not now, then when? I urge you all to really step it up, and we love our profession. Let's tell everybody that, whether they want to listen or not, let's tell them about all the great things that we're doing. Thank you. So Christos, I believe we have a few minutes, so we can open it up to the floor for questions. We have a microphone.
Yes, sir.
Ναι, γεια σας. Ερώτηση στα αγγλικά ή στα ελληνικά να την κάνω τώρα? Στα ελληνικά. Θα ήθελα να μας πούν τα υλικά των κατασκευών ποια είναι. Δηλαδή μέταλλο, πλαστικό, πολυμερή, τι?
The question is, can you give us a feedback on the materials of construction for this future city? What is your vision?
I think there's a lot of examples. First of all, there's a folder here that keeps turning it down. I think there's a lot of material potential, but we have fundamentally been using steel and concrete and chlorine for water disinfection for a long time. We have to think about innovation. I will give you, if you want to translate that, and then I'll give the second half.
Τα βασικά είναι για χάλιβα σκυρόδεμα και εξυγένση του νερού με χλώριο πρακτικά σαν υλικά. Αλλά υπάρχουν πολλά καινούργια υλικά που μπορούν να δώσουν καινούργιες ιδιότητες.
So an example that when I was directing the Tappan Zee Bridge,